So, um, so as I mentioned before, this is kind of a little bit of an enigmatic day. Shabbat Hagadol, the harbinger of Pesach, and Pesach is the harbinger of spring. Yet we're still talking about the Torah reading today, Parshat Tzav, and basically this is often referred to as the manual for the Kohanim. We've been hearing about all the different sacrifices. Now we're hearing about how the Kohanim will actually do the sacrifices, and it talks about the investment of the Kohanim with all their linen and special outfits and gear and all that sort of thing. And there's one thing that was, well, there are a number of things in here. There's a real interesting thing that takes place in chapter 8, which we didn't do today. And if any of you had a chance to look over the Torah study sheet that Amy sends out every week, this week in chapter 8, verse 23, I believe, there's a note that there are only 4 of them in the entire Chumash, and that's called a shalshelet. Where have we seen the shalshelet before? Any thoughts? I'll give you an idea. One was with Joseph and Potiphar's wife. So shalshelet, and I forgot what the others are. I would encourage everyone to read that one. Usually it refers to a significant moment of indecision. So as Moses is investing his brother Aaron and Aaron's sons into the Kohanim hierarchy, Moses has been given the right to invest, but he doesn't get a chance to become the high priest. So the commentary in the Torah study sheet this week talks about why is there a shalshelet there? And if a shalshelet typically is found in places of indecision, hesitancy, of a major import, any thoughts as to why it might be placed there? What is so hesitant about Moses investing his brotherhood into the right of the Kohanim? What was that? So Judy is saying that Moses was the one that was basically communicating with God up until this point. And in a sense, he kind of thought that he was going to continue this, but now this job is being turned over to Aharon, his brother. And as a result, the author of the Torah study sheet this week seems to imply that Moses is doing this almost reluctantly, hesitating as this is happening. And it's a very interesting piece, but there's something else that I want to focus on for this week. With all these sacrifices, and by the way, if you've done heavy duty Passover cleaning, you can probably relate to this word sacrifice. So I'd like to share a commentary from Rabbi Bradley Shavit Artson, who I believe is the dean of the Ziegler School of the Ziegler Rabbinic School in Los Angeles. He talks about Parshat Tzav Tzav is command. And he also talks about the fact that the Torah portion today, we actually read this portion today. He wants to focus on the, what is it called? The Todah Korban Todah, the Thanksgiving offering, the offering of well-being. And we actually find this in our own Siddur, surviving today as the Birkat HaGomel, recovery from serious illness or, a major, potentially life-threatening situation, recovering from childbirth, whatever it may be. It's a very special situation that you find yourself in a better place as a result of this having taken place. So I'd like to share just a little bit here from Rabbi Bradley Shvedadson about a word of thanksgiving. For the second week in a row, our Torah presents a detailed account of the sacrifices offered first in the Mishkan in the wilderness and later in the Temple of Jerusalem. Sin offerings, guilt offerings, burnt offerings, and thanksgiving offerings, each with its own regulations and procedures, claim the Jewish attention as the central means for biblical Jews to atone for wrongdoing and to renew themselves as children of God. After realizing that they had committed a sin, Jews in the biblical period would offer a sacrifice, basically as a way to acknowledge their own imperfection and their resolution to do better in the future. With one exception, the sacrifices we read about this week respond to human violations of the covenant with God. But the Korban Todah, the Thanksgiving offering, was different at its core. Rather than an expression of human shortcomings, this offering was meant as a response to the abundant goodness of God, whereas the other sacrifices attempt to compensate for human imperfection or even evil. The Korban Todah is a celebration of life and its wonder. The rabbis of antiquity were so enamored of the Korban Todah that they declared, in the coming time, all sacrifices will be annulled, except for the Thanksgiving sacrifice. And all prayers will be annulled, except for prayers of thanksgiving. In the language of a messianic future, this passage from Midrash Vayikra Rabbah asserts that suffering and failure to live up to our own highest potential is not an inevitable part of human identity. Instead, our shortcomings are products of the disappointments and pain that life entails. Human evil and violence is circumstantial, the harvest of pre-existing suffering. Hence, in the future, the need for sacrifices meant to atone for wrongdoing will all disappear. But goodness and gratitude are everlasting, at the very center of what it means to be a human being. According to this Talmudic view, long after human suffering has ended, long after the world has attained its full messianic promise, people will still feel a need to sing, to celebrate, and to thank. The task of the Jew is to start that singing early, in the midst of a world at war, a world of illness, poverty, and ignorance. We can light up the world with the fires of our thanksgiving. Too often, we let the sufferings of life overwhelm our appreciation for its beauty. Sorrow may be the inevitable price we pay for love, but who would abandon love simply to lessen pain? Life summons us to rejoice at the bonds that we can form with one another, at moments of special kindness or creativity and pleasure, a wonderful day, a flourishing tree. The Midrash tells a story of a king who received callers. As each person offered the king a gift, the king would inquire who that person was. When informed that the person was one of his tenants or a member of the court, the king would instruct his servants, take the offering, and that would be the end of it. But when somebody appeared before the king who was neither a member of his entourage nor a tenant on his land, the king would be so moved by this spontaneous gift that he would have a special chair brought for this thoughtful citizen. Likewise, with sacrifices, a sin offering is brought for a sin, a guilt offering is brought for a sin, but a thanksgiving offering is not brought for a sin, and therefore the Torah records, if it be for a thanksgiving, God will bring this person near. We can all sincerely regret our own failures. We most often do so when the price for our selfishness or insensitivity is more than we are willing to pay. Then, though our expressions of regret also have the reek of self-interest, but gratitude and celebration have little to do with self-interest and everything to do with appreciation for the sheer miracle of our lives. We open our eyes to the loveliness of the world, our ears to the symphony of life within and around us. Despite the difficulties of life, we offer thanksgiving to the Holy Blessed One, and by doing so, enhance the gift of joy in the world. And as we approach this Pesach this year, may our prayer of thanksgiving never be annulled. Shabbat Shalom.
Yasher Koach.